Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Pakistan is fighting a three-front war. A series of attacks that have in fact rocked the Pakistani nation on the face of it may appear to be separate incidents. But there is a clear thread which connects the spate of attacks that have happened one after another in Pakistan. On the night of the 25th of March, at least about 6 Baloch militants tried to storm into PNS Siddiqui in Turbat, which is Pakistan's second largest naval airbase. The attack, which began at about 10 p.m. in the night, went on for several hours, with reports of dozens of explosions and gunfire. The Baloch militants reportedly tried to scale the boundary of the naval airbase in Turbat from 3 sides. But a special operation wing of the Frontier Corps and the Pakistan Navy Special Services managed to successfully take down the Baloch militants with no loss of any sensitive naval installations. According to reports, there are several Chinese military drones that have been stationed at this Pakistani naval airbase. The Majid Brigade of the Balochistan Liberation Army has claimed responsibility for the attack. Now keep in mind, this is the third major attack on Pakistan's security forces and its military installations in Balochistan since the beginning of this year that has been claimed by the Balochistan Liberation Army. Just 5 days prior to that, on the 20th of March, 8 armed fighters of the Majid Brigade of the Balochistan Liberation Army tried to storm the Gwadar port, which is the crown jewel of the $62 billion China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project. The attack, which began at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, went on for several hours. The Baloch separatists crashed a car full of explosives into the gate of the Port Authority complex. In the pitched gunfight that followed, at least about 5 Pakistani security personnel were killed before all 8 attackers of the Majid Brigade were gunned down. On the 29th of January earlier in the year, the Baloch separatists had tried to storm the March prison that is 65 kilometers south of Quetta. 4 security personnel along with all 6 of the attackers were killed in the incident. Balochistan is Pakistan's largest but also its most poorest province. Despite being blessed with rich mineral resources and vast reserves of natural gas, the decades-old Baloch separatist movement accuses Islamabad of neglecting the Baloch people, while exploiting the Baloch resources by placing a heavy heel on the back of the Baloch people. The Pakistani establishment has often been accused of enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings and human rights abuse of the ethnic Baloch people, who are suspected of supporting Baloch separatism. But this is just the beginning of Pakistan's problems. On the 26th of March, 5 Chinese engineers and a Pakistani driver were killed when a suicide attacker rammed his explosive-laden vehicle into the convoy of Chinese cars that were on their way from Islamabad to Dasu, where a key hydroelectric power plant is under construction by a Chinese company. No group has claimed responsibility for this attack. Pakistan considers China to be its all-weather friend, and Beijing has invested heavily in several infrastructure projects in Pakistan. Immediately after the attack on its engineers, China announced that it is halting the construction on 2 major dam projects in Pakistan. Besides this, Beijing has also demanded for new security plans for the Chinese staff who are now working in Pakistan. The Pakistani government views the Chinese investments and infrastructure as Pakistan's economic lifeline. But several groups within Pakistan, besides the Baloch insurgents, view the Chinese investments as exploitative. But this is just the beginning of Pakistan's problems. For decades, the Pakistani deep state had cultivated the Taliban as part of Rawalpindi's projection of power. Afghanistan was treated as Pakistan's strategic backyard. But now, the tables appear to be turned. The triumphant return of the Taliban in Kabul has created a completely new dynamic. Afghanistan is no longer Pakistan's strategic backyard. Instead, the tehrik-i-taliban Pakistan, that is also known as the Pakistani Taliban, has declared an all-out war against Islamabad. The tehrik-i-taliban Pakistan has also pledged its allegiance to the Afghan Taliban in Kabul. And its stated objective is the destruction of the Pakistani state as it exists at the moment and to establish a new state with its own narrow interpretation of the Sharia law. In just the year 2023, the TTP is reported to have carried out over 650 attacks, in which over 1,000 Pakistani people have been killed. On the 18th of March, Pakistan carried out cross-border air raids on Khost and Paktika in Afghanistan, with a claim that it was targeting the tehrik-i-taliban Pakistan hideouts in the country. The Taliban accused Pakistan of killing 8 women and children and immediately responded by firing artillery shells across the Durand Line border. When the Americans were forced into a humiliating retreat from Afghanistan, the then Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan had famously said that the Taliban had shaken off the shackles of slavery. But what is ironic is that the Afghan Taliban do not recognize the Durand Line, which is the Afghan-Pakistan border. And attempts by Islamabad to set up a fence to demarcate the Pakistan-Afghanistan border have been met with angry incidents of breaking down the border fence by the Taliban. Interestingly, even the TTP, which operates from inside the Pakistani soil, wants to merge the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province in Pakistan with Afghanistan. The other low-intensity front that has suddenly blown up in the face of Pakistan is its border with Iran. On the 17th and the 18th of January earlier this year, Iran and Pakistan had fired some highly coordinated missile strikes into each other's territory, sparking off fears of a larger conflict. Each side accuses the other of fomenting trouble in the other's territory by encouraging Baloch separatism, that is in Pakistan's Balochistan province and in Iran's Sistan Balochistan. The situation, however, was soon brought under control, but the underlying issues still remain relevant. This three-front war that is slowly and steadily consuming Pakistan has come at a time when Islamabad's finances are on some very shaky ground. And the question now is, can Pakistan find the political gumption and the financial muscle to fight this three-front war that is slowly but surely gnawing away at the country from the inside? The Israeli assault on the Gaza Strip has resulted in the deaths of more than 32,500 Palestinians, more than two-thirds of whom are women and children. According to estimates, over 14,000 Palestinian children have been killed in this Israeli onslaught so far. The relentless campaign of bombings by the Israelis that has flattened almost about 70% of all buildings in the Gaza Strip has forced almost about 1.5 million Palestinians to seek refuge in Rafah, that is in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. The Israeli assault has prompted charges of genocide in the International Court of Justice. But the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues to remain pretty belligerent and has said that no international pressure will stop Israel from achieving its war goals. For weeks now, Netanyahu has threatened to carry out a ground offensive into Rafah. But the question is, how crucial is the support of Israel's chief ally, the United States, in this offensive? The American President Joe Biden has said that the ground invasion of Rafah by the Israelis would be a red line. But that doesn't mean that if Israel invades into Rafah with catastrophic loss of lives for the Palestinians, the United States would stop sending weapons to Israel. So the overarching question is this: can the state of Israel invade into Rafah without American weapons?
The southern city of Rafah is today crammed with some 1.5 million Palestinians from other parts of Gaza seeking refuge. The city has been bracing for an Israeli ground offensive for weeks now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly said that the offensive in the city at the southern tip of the Gaza Strip will happen and will take several weeks. Though Israeli plans to invade Rafah have been heavily criticized by the international community, including US and UK, will it throw a spanner in the works?
We have a very long-standing security relationship with Israel, and certainly after October 7th, we worked very hard to rush security assistance to Israel in support of their efforts to defend themselves against attacks from Hamas and future terrorist attacks. And when it comes to the provision of security assistance to include weapons and weapons systems, obviously I don't want to get ahead of those conversations. Those are always ongoing conversations. But through programs like foreign military finance, foreign military sales, again, it's part of our efforts, longstanding efforts to ensure Israel's qualitative military edge.
As Israel prepares for an offensive in Rafah, it has been speculated that the ongoing delivery of weapons could be used as a leverage by US to press Israel to expand humanitarian aid and to provide greater protection for civilians. Reportedly, the US has held back some weapons to pressurize Israel. Israel is the largest cumulative recipient of US foreign aid. In an agreement signed in 1999, the US government committed to provide Israel with at least $2.7 billion in military aid annually for 10 years. The figure was raised to $3 billion in 2009 and to a minimum of $3.8 billion in 2019. While the war games continue, aid supplies in Gaza have dwindled to barely a trickle.
Thank God He has granted us 2 meals. It's true that they are not enough, but it's better to have something than nothing. Today, the kids will have something for iftar. Today we'll have iftar while there are people who haven't eaten anything for 2 or 3 days. Hopefully, the situation will get better and people will feed their kids.
More than 5 months of war has pushed at least a quarter of the Gazan population to the brink of famine. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu never misses an opportunity to remind the world of the October 7th massacre. But the reduction of an entire population to a life of suffering and indignity in response is not just indefensible, but also inhuman.
Close to 3 weeks after the country's Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigned following a surge of gang violence in the capital Port-au-Prince, details of a presidential transitional council are still awaited. One of the principal challenges that the council will face is the illegal trafficking of guns from the United States, which has enabled the gangs to reign supreme. Meanwhile, in a report that's been released by the Office of the United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights on Thursday, it's been revealed that in the first quarter of this year, gang violence in Haiti has resulted in 1,554 deaths. Describing the situation in Haiti as cataclysmic, the report has further said that corruption, impunity and poor governance, compounded by escalating gang violence, have eroded the rule of law and have brought the state institutions on the verge of collapse. Our next report gets you more details.
Is Haiti in danger of falling into the hands of criminal gangs? A staggering 200 gangs operate with impunity in the Port-au-Prince metropolitan area. United Nations estimates that since the assassination of former President Jovenel Moïse in July 2021, emboldened gangs have seized control of 80% of the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. Elections have not taken place since 2016 and the presidency remains vacant. About a month ago, on the 29th of February, armed gangs in control of vast swathes of Haiti launched a coordinated attack in a bid to oust Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who was in Kenya at the time, finalizing details for the deployment of a foreign armed force to Haiti to combat the gangs. What could be fueling the astonishing surge in Haiti's gang-related violence? A country that does not manufacture weapons finds its capital, Port-au-Prince, flooded with every type of gun, including high-powered rifles such as AK-47s, 9mm pistols, sniper rifles and machine guns. Analysts are of the opinion that the root of the problem lies elsewhere.
Haiti is a country that doesn't manufacture guns, and the guns and ammunition that have been using are controlled by those gangsters We have automatic rifle coming straight from the belly of the United States of America. And you have not only the Biden administration, when Donald John Trump was president, any president who they didn't do nothing to stop the flow of illegal guns in Haiti. So what is happening in Haiti is happening because of the complicity and the involvement of the United States of America, of Canada, of France.
Some estimates put the figure at about 500,000 legal and illegal weapons in Haiti as of 2020. Reportedly, guns and ammunition are being smuggled in from the US states of Florida, Texas and Georgia via land, air and sea. It is not as if the Haitian authorities are sitting idle. There have been seizures in the country's main ports in Port-au-Prince, Port-de-Paix and Cap Haitien. But the power vacuum created after the assassination of former President Jovenel Moïse has emboldened gangs who have intensified their rampage over the past month.
You have an attack on the central bank offices. You had 2 attempts to take the National Palace. You have human rights defenders and journalists being targeted. So this is extremely alarming. The gangs have turned their violence towards people that for whatever reasons they see as a threat to their continued control of the territories they control.
The gang violence has resulted in the internal displacement of close to 400,000 people. In a country of 11 million people, 4.35 million people face acute food insecurity. And 1 million find themselves on the precipice of famine. With no let-up in the gang violence and the political future still hanging in limbo, Haiti is at serious risk of further destabilization.
The small South American nation of Ecuador was once perceived as a haven of peace. However, in the past 5 years, things have taken a turn for the worse. Its strategic position, sandwiched between the cocaine-producing Colombia and Peru, combined with its large ports, lax security and endemic corruption, have lured foreign drug cartels to its shores. Years of unchecked mushrooming influence of transnational narco-gangs, who use its ports to ship cocaine to the United States and Europe, has now plunged Ecuador into a crisis. Announcing that Ecuador is at war, the President Daniel Noboa declared a state of emergency in January this year. But the narco-gangs have retaliated with their own declaration of war, threatening to execute civilians and security forces. Scores of people have been killed in this violence. On the 24th of March, Ecuador's youngest mayor was shot dead in her car. And a couple of days later, a populous and a dangerous neighborhood in Guayaquil was also raided. Our next report gets you the details.
Ecuador's youngest mayor, 27-year-old Brigitte Garcia, and her communications director, Jairo Lur, were found shot dead in a car early Sunday morning. The killings come amidst a wave of violence in the Andean country. The police confirmed that the slain mayor of the coastal city of San Vicente in Manabi province had not requested police protection and was consequently without a security detail. The investigation to ascertain the motive was underway, but it was not yet clear if she had received any death threats.
The vehicle was found parked and inside were 2 bodies, which we can identify as the mayor, Ms. Brigitte Garcia, and inside the vehicle was also the driver, Mr. Jairo Lur. We are already investigating, already coordinated on all levels, preventive investigative intelligence to carry out the actions that fall on us, especially in these moments of violence, to address all these concerns.
Garcia is the latest political figure to be killed following the assassination of presidential hopeful Fernando Villavicencio last August. A vocal critique of corruption and organized crime, Villavicencio, a former investigative journalist, was killed while leaving a campaign event barely 2 weeks before the election. In a dubious distinction, the port city of Guayaquil has rapidly ascended to become the epicenter of Ecuador's crime problems. On Tuesday, about 1,600 police and military officers raided the Socio Vivende neighborhood in Guayaquil The notorious area has a significant presence of criminal groups linked to drug trafficking and other crimes such as kidnapping and extortion. In the early morning raid targeting 130 buildings, 17 people were arrested and 52 kilos of drugs was seized.
After the operations deployment that started at 4:30 in the morning, after 4 hours we can give the final results. There are 17 detainees, among them 16 men and 1 woman. Within them, there are also 4 involved in yesterday's death of a mutilated and dismembered person who was thrown from a bicycle. Up until now, these 4 people were detained and handed over to the prosecutor's office.
The president, Daniel Noboa, wearing a bulletproof vest and a military helmet, was also present during the operation. The burgeoning crisis is the toughest challenge for Daniel Noboa, barely 5 months into his term, who had pledged to curb violence of narco-gangs in his election campaign. Will Noboa succeed in his fight against narco-gangs? A 17 million strong nation, anxious and panic-stricken, awaits.
And with that's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.